All right, so get ready. We're going to dive into a world that's kind of shadowy, and surprisingly relevant to everyone listening, to your digital life.
Right.
We're talking about anonymous VPS services.
Yeah.
Think of them like secret digital apartments, right? You can roam them with cryptocurrency, no questions asked.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
And our source today is this blog post by a cybersecurity researcher who's been tracking one company in particular. It's called BitLaunch.
Okay.
And the evidence that they've recovered has been linking these services to some big ransomware attacks.
Yeah, I mean, what's really interesting here is the challenge this poses for law enforcement.
Right.
You know, imagine like trying to track down criminals who operate in, constantly shifting, completely anonymous online spaces.
Oh, yeah.
It's like chasing ghosts.
That's a great analogy, like ghosts in the machine.
Yeah.
So let's start with the basics.
Sure.
What exactly is BitLaunch, and why are they on this researcher's radar?
So BitLaunch is a UK-based company that provides what are called virtual private servers, or VPS, which are basically like renting a slice of a powerful computer in the cloud.
I see.
So they resell services from, big names like DigitalOcean and Vultr.
Right.
But they've kind of made a name for themselves by specifically offering these anonymous Bitcoin VPS.
I'm curious about BitLaunch's position here. I mean, their business model seems inherently vulnerable to exploitation.
Right.
Do you think they're, like, walking a tightrope?
It's definitely a gray area, I would say.
Yeah.
On the one hand, they're providing a service that, in theory, promotes privacy and online freedom.
Yeah.
But the tools they offer can be, easily weaponized by bad actors.
The researcher noticed that BitLaunch kept popping up in cyber threat intelligence reports.
Oh, wow.
Particularly those related to ransomware. That's a pretty big red flag.
Absolutely. Cybersecurity experts have actually labeled their service as quote-unquote perfect for C2 servers.
Wow.
So imagine it as like the control center for a robot army.
Oh, okay.
Sending out commands to attack.
Okay, so we have this company offering these anonymous servers that are known to be favored by cybercriminals.
Right.
Yeah, what kind of evidence did the researcher find directly linking BitLaunch to illegal activity?
So there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
One of the most compelling pieces of evidence involves Cobalt Strike.
Right.
Which is a popular tool used by ransomware gangs.
Okay.
And a significant number of Cobalt Strike C2 servers were found hosted on BitLaunch's platform.
So it's not just a hypothetical risk, there's actual proof these servers are being used for malicious purposes.
Exactly. And there's data from this Twitter bot called C2 Intel Feeds bot.
Wow, okay.
That actually tracks these servers, showing a year-on-year increase in Cobalt Strike C2s.
Oh, wow.
Hosted on BitLaunch since 2021.
Right.
So this isn't just a few isolated incidents.
Yeah.
It suggests a pattern.
And to make matters worse, multiple cybersecurity firms have directly linked BitLaunch IP addresses to some pretty high-profile ransomware attacks, including one against Cisco.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, we're talking about major companies being hit.
Right, and that raises the question of BitLaunch's responsibility.
Right.
I mean, they claim to respond to takedown requests from law enforcement.
Right.
But their entire business model is built around anonymity.
Right.
And quick server setup.
Yeah.
It's like trying to catch smoke.
Right. By the time the authorities catch on, the damage is done.
Right.
And the criminals have vanished into the digital ether.
Precisely. And this takes us to a really important question.
Right.
Is BitLaunch willfully blind to what's happening on their platform?
Yeah.
Or are they actually complicit,
right,
profiting from this illegal activity while putting on a show of cooperation?
So it's definitely a morally ambiguous situation.
Yeah, it is.
So what's the official response from BitLaunch?
Right.
Are they acknowledging any responsibility for the actions of their users?
They haven't publicly addressed the specific allegations in detail.
Okay.
But they maintain that they comply with all legal requirements and cooperate with law enforcement agencies when required. But their business model is undeniably enabling this activity.
That's where things get tricky, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how do we balance, the need for online privacy with the need to prevent harm?
Exactly.
I mean, imagine if any platform that was used for illegal activity was shut down.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't that be overreach?
Mm-hmm.
People use email for phishing.
Yeah.
But we don't shut down all email providers.
Right. That's the crux of the issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not a simple black and white situation.
Right.
There are legitimate uses for anonymous VPS services.
Yeah.
But there's also a clear potential for abuse.
Yeah.
And finding the right balance between privacy and security is a challenge that we haven't quite figured out yet.
Right.
Yeah. So let's unpack the different aspects of this a bit further.
Okay. So we've kind of established this isn't just a bit launch problem. It's like a systemic issue with anonymous VPS services as a whole. Mm-hmm. Where do we even begin to address something like this?
Well, so the researcher suggests a multi-pronged approach with a particular focus on what the UK government could be, given that BitLaunch is UK-based.
Yeah.
One key area he points to is regulation.
Okay.
A lot of smaller hosting providers might simply be unaware of the risks associated with these services, or they lack the resources to effectively monitor for abuse.
So it's about education as much as it is about enforcement.
Precisely.
Okay.
The UK government could play a role in educating these smaller providers about the potential consequences of having their infrastructure used for cybercrime.
And imagine some providers might be hesitant to implement stricter monitoring or KYC procedures, fearing it could drive away customers who value anonymity.
Yeah, that's where industry initiatives could come into play.
Okay.
So imagine like a program that highlights the reputational and financial damage that can result from inadvertently supporting cybercrime. Mm-hmm. It's about shifting the mindset from simply providing a service to actively considering the potential downsides.
That makes a lot of sense. If providers understand the risks, they're more likely to take proactive steps to mitigate them.
Exactly.
What about the technological side of things?
Sure.
Are there any tools or strategies that could help identify and shut down these malicious servers more effectively?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The blog post suggests providing smaller companies with free network monitoring tools.
Okay.
This would give them the ability to identify and shut down malicious activity on their servers before it escalates.
So instead of playing whack-a-mole after an attack has already happened, they could potentially prevent it in the first place.
Yeah, and there's also the possibility of using blockchain analytics to trace cryptocurrency payments back to known illicit sources.
Right.
So if a hosting provider is alerted that they're receiving funds from a wallet associated with ransomware or other cybercrime, it could be a major red flag.
It's like following the money trail in the digital world.
Exactly.
Right? Shining a light on the financial flows to help disrupt the ecosystem that supports these ransomware gangs.
For sure.
But let's shift gears for a moment. We've talked a lot about the role of governments and companies.
Right.
But what about individual responsibility?
Yeah.
What about the people who are actually choosing to use these anonymous services for, criminal purposes?
That's where the conversation gets really complex.
Yeah.
How do you balance the need for online anonymity with the need to prevent harm?
Yeah.
It's a question that's becoming increasingly relevant as more of our lives move online.
It reminds me of the debate around encryption.
Sure.
Strong encryption is essential for privacy and security, but it can also be used by criminals to shield their communications.
Right.
Where do you draw the line?
It's a tough question with no easy answers. But I think it's important to remember that technology itself is neutral.
Right.
It's how we choose to use it.
Right.
That determines whether it becomes a force for good or for ill.
And that choice ultimately lies with each individual.
Yeah.
We can't simply rely on governments or companies to solve this problem for us.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the researcher's analogy of the hotel.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
The hotel itself isn't breaking the law.
Right.
But they have a moral obligation to address the problem if it becomes a recurring issue.
And in this analogy, we're all guests in the hotel.
Right.
We may not be the ones committing the crimes, but we have a shared responsibility to, speak up and demand action. So where does all this leave you, our listener? I mean, we've explored this world of anonymous VPS services.
Right.
And kind of how they can be exploited.
Yeah.
The ethical tightrope these companies walk.
Yeah.
And the challenges in balancing privacy and security.
Right.
It's a lot to digest.
It is. It really highlights the complexities of the digital world.
Right.
These services, designed to offer privacy and freedom, can be turned into these tools for crime.
Right.
And tackling this issue isn't as simple as just shutting them down.
Right.
So we've discussed the roles governments, companies, and even individuals play in navigating this landscape.
Yeah. It's clear there are no easy answers.
No.
But what I find especially interesting is the researchers' comparison to stolen funds being used to buy gift cards.
Okay.
Right. So the platform selling the gift cards might not be doing anything illegal, but they're enabling criminal activity.
Yeah.
Does that shift your perspective on this at all?
It does. It really brings the ethical dilemma into focus, doesn't it? Like, if a company knows or should reasonably know their services are being used for illegal activities, to what extent are they responsible?
Yeah.
And how do you balance that with, protecting the legitimate uses of their services?
It's like that old saying, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Right.
In this case, could the price of anonymity be the potential for misuse?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that a price we're willing to pay as a society?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And one that each of us needs to consider.
Yeah.
What level of anonymity are we comfortable with online?
Right.
And what are we willing to sacrifice to ensure the safety and security of the digital world?
Right.
So this deep dive has hopefully provided you with the information you need to form your own opinion on this complex issue.
I think what resonates with me most is this idea that this isn't just like an abstract problem for someone else to solve.
Yeah.
We all have a role to play in creating a safer and more ethical digital world, whether it's, being mindful of the services we use and supporting initiatives that promote responsible online behavior or advocating for effective solutions.
For sure.
We can all make a difference.
That's a powerful takeaway.
Yeah.
And this is a conversation that needs to continue.
Yeah.
And we encourage you to think critically about the role anonymity plays in your own digital life.
Right.
So where do you see the line between privacy and accountability in the online world?
And if you're ready to keep exploring this topic, we have links to the original blog post as well as some additional resources in the show notes.
Yeah, dive in.
So dive in and keep the conversation going.
Keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.